Well, welcome back to Donington Park, everybody, for the 100th race weekend for the GT Cup Championship. We had a great race earlier on. In dry conditions, you can see the weather has taken a turn for the worst, and it's rather grim, to say the least, out there on circuit at the moment. Heavy rainfall is interrupting the schedule and the timetable. But we are celebrating our 100th weekend of racing, regardless of the conditions here at Donington Park. And it all started back in November of 2007. The first ever race weekend for GT Cup was at Snetterton. Let's look back at some of the highlights.
This is going to be for the non-professional drivers, drivers who are racing their own cars or are hiring a car, and who basically are doing it for their own entertainment and their own fun.
So it'll be flat out down the back there at about 165. So it should be good for me, but I've got to get braver on the corners.
Got the lights go out. Simpson slow away. Ruin gets all tossed up in the Ferrari. Simpson almost goes into the back of him as they charge down towards Riches for the first time. Colin Simpson, who charges past in the Marcos. And there are plenty of Ferraris. We had 24 cars entered for this first race in the series, and that is no mean feat. Synchronised spinning from the Ferraris there. Andy Newton, who's not that experienced, has had a very good weekend so far. Colin Broster charges up the inside and takes the place away. Cold autumn day here at Snetterton, so there's not that much track temperature. He gets away with it there, has a big slide and then spins! The two 996 type Porsches up towards Sear. Broster has a go on the inside, he's going to go through. Wilkins comes back at him though as they go onto the Revit straight. They're going to be side by side now, heading down towards the braking area. They've got Dave Shelton's BMW Z3M Coupe ahead. There's great variety in the GT Cup here. And look at the way that Chris Everald's going. The little Ginetti G20 scuttling along and looking for a place on the inside. So, Jim Geddy leads the Porsche 997, and all over the grass there goes Colin Broster. He's made a complete mess of the S's. He's needing a new tyre as well. Left rear having to be replaced on the GT Porsche. It's been an all-action weekend here at Snetterton in the GT Cup, and there are still battles to be resolved. Ferrari's running nose to tail here, for example, as they make the run down the Revit straight. Meantime, Porsche's battle on. Number 3 is Craig Wilkins. He puts a lap on the Bertie Carruthers driven Porsche, but he's also now got Colin Broster right up behind him. This is the fight for third place. The best lap of the race so far, incidentally, done by Mike Wilde, so the Ferrari's a quick round here, and Andy Ruin proves the point by going up the inside. He takes the place off Everall, he runs wide and hands it straight back. Colin Broster is on the outside. Is he going to be able to drive all the way around the outside? Yes, he can. Fantastic move. Look at this, though. 2 Ferraris versus Porsche into the braking area and diving up the inside. Duncan Cameron gets himself to the head of that little gaggle of cars. There's another race still to come, but it looks as though he's going to put his name in the history books by winning the first round of the GT Cup. Up over the line he comes, checker flag at the ready. Jim Geddy wins at Snetterton.
So some great memories from 13 years ago when it all started at Snetterton, November 2007. The first ever GT Cup race. We are celebrating our 100th race weekend this weekend. And, well, the rain is dampening some of those celebrations. It is pouring down out there. There is no other word about it. The circuit is looking very, very wet. The grass is going to be very, very wet. And for these drivers in these powerful cars out there on the grid, just keeping the thing pointing in the right direction is going to be difficult. Now, we did have a race earlier on today which started in dry conditions and it just started to get wet towards the end of it. So let's look back at some of the highlights from the sprint race earlier on today. In the first GT Cup Championship race of the weekend, it was Graham Tilley's Nissan and John Dillon's Ferrari that lined up on the front row of the grid, but the fast-starting Lamborghini of John Seal would take the lead of the race as they turned their way in towards Redgate Corner for the first time. At the end of the first lap, David Franklin deposited his Porsche into the gravel trap at the Robert Chicane. That brought about the safety car. When the safety car came back in, John Seal was under pressure for the lead of the race from John Dillon's Ferrari and Graham Tilley's Nissan sitting there in third position. But there was light contact between the Ferrari, which rotated the Lamborghini of John Seal around at Redgate Corner and dropped him down through the order. There were some great midfield battles going on. Charlotte Gilbert's Marcus Mantis was under enormous pressure from Matt Toppen at the wheel of the Newbridge Motorsport Aston Martin, whilst Graham Tilley was then looking to try and take the lead of the race away from John Dillon and managed to do so as they carved their way out of Redgate Corner. John Seal's progress through the order continued. The Lamborghini, having spun down into 15th position, was working its way through the order, and Ian Logie was having a great fight with Stephen Walton's Ginetta, which seemed to be struggling as conditions started to worsen. Craig Wilkins also took the opportunity to go through and grab a place. As the conditions started to worsen, John Seal made a mistake at Coppice Corner, and all of the hard work bringing the Lamborghini back up through the field very quickly became unravelled. There were some great fights going on down through the order. Charlotte Gilbert was under pressure from the championship leading car of Josh Jackson, but towards the end of the race, the heavens opened and John Dillon was struggling to keep the Ferrari pointing in the right direction as he headed round through Coppice Corner. Seconds later, off the track went Patrick Collins. But for Graham Tilley, it was going to be a win in the first race of the weekend, the 100th weekend of racing in the GT Cup Championship. His third win on the trot. He came through to claim the honours, but in second place, John Dillon claims the Sprint Cup Championship in the GT Cup for 2020. So, John, we've just seen you take the checkered flag, and that checkered flag gives you the Sprint Championship for 2020 in GT Cup. Well done.
Oh, great. I didn't realise that. Another award, which is good. Yeah, the race was pretty good, pretty consistent. Had a reasonable start. Had a little bit of a tap with John Seal, which I couldn't help. So I apologised to him. And then, yeah, managed to finish second, just behind Graham.
So I think we're nearly there now. So let's just see, as the official start leave, let's guide you through the grid then for this one, and we'll pick out the starting drivers and the success seconds that they all have to serve as well. So front row of the grid, pole position goes the way of the car of John Seal, the Lamborghini, 15 success seconds to spend in the pit lane, and alongside is the number 61 Scott Sport Ferrari of John Dillon, an extra 20 seconds to spend in the pit lane when he gives way to Phil Quaife. Row 2 of the grid, the number 78 Team Hard Porsche, Sam Randon, will start there, and alongside it is going to be number 3 Top Cats Racing Marcos Mantis. If it's in the grid, yes it is, I can see its orange wing mirrors. That's Warren Gilbert will start, an extra 15 success seconds. Row 3 of the grid is Henry Dawes at the wheel of his Ginetta, an extra 9 seconds to spend in the pits, and alongside is Stephen Chandler for Team Hard, the Ginetta, with an extra 15 seconds. Row 4 of the grid is Simon Orange. No additional penalties for them to worry about. They are the Group GTA champions already confirmed for this year, and alongside is number 17 Patrick Collins will start, an extra 10 seconds to spend. The 5th row of the grid is the number 1 McLaren in the hands of Steve Ruston, an extra 15 seconds, and alongside is the number 38 Newbridge Motorsport Aston Martin. Matt Topham drives. The 6th row of the grid is number 6 Ian Logie, an extra 9 seconds to spend in the pit lane, and alongside is 82 the Ginetta of James Guess, an extra 20 seconds. Row 7 of the grid is number 80, that's Craig Wilkins, an extra 10 seconds in the pit lane, and alongside is car number 212 Stephen Walton and his Make It Happen Racing Ginetta, an extra 20 seconds in the pit lane. Row 8 of the grid is the Jeff Steele Racing BMW, car number 888. Richard Marsh on board for part 1 of the race, an extra 9 seconds to spend in the pits, and alongside is 72, the Whitebridge Motorsport Aston Martin of former champion Chris Murphy, the 2018 champion, and the 9th and final row of the grid is the Century Motorsport Ginetta. Alex Stevenson will start, and alongside is the outgoing Group GTB champion, the champion from last year, the number 911 Porsche, in the hands of David Franklin. David Franklin will have an extra 20 seconds to spend in the pit lane. So that is the way that they line up. That gives you the extra success seconds that have to be factored into that pit stop, which must occur between the 24th and the 35th minute of the race. Everybody has to remain stationary for the minimum period of 60 seconds, plus the time it takes to pass through the pits. Plus those success seconds that I've just given you. So that in theory means from pit in to pit out, add all of that up, and that's the amount of time that they have to spend in the pit lane somewhere, from breaking the beam on entry to breaking the beam on exit of the corner. So the race is in reality now underway. It is a safety car start that we will get. The clock has started ticking, so whilst there is no change in the order, whilst they remain under safety car, we have got the race going. So it's only once we get the safety car and the officials satisfied that the drivers are able to have enough sufficient visibility and that they are then acclimatised to these conditions, because they've not been out there in anywhere like these conditions. You saw on the highlights that it was only just starting to get greasy on slick tyres earlier on. Well, now there is no choice to make. You've got to have the wet Pirelli tyre, and even that is on occasions going to, it's a fantastic tyre, still going to struggle to cope with the amount of standing water that's down there. We will also see the cars taking subtly different lines in these conditions. The tarmac gets worn on the regular dry racing line, which means that when it's wet, there's then less adhesion on that pod. It's a more polished surface. It's got more rubber that sits on there, and that rubber becomes slightly slippier in the wet conditions. So we will see more and more drivers taking wider arcs through the corners, as they're even doing on this formation lap. We could see a few of them doing there. So they will be trying to seek out any small extra little bit of traction that they can do, and in the wet conditions, that's, as I say, staying off the usual racing line and making sure that you, if needs be, just feed the throttle in as gently as ever. It may well be that they're short shifting as well, shifting gear earlier than they would usually do, and also trying to contain the traction as well. It's fine if you're in some of the GT3 cars and the GT4 cars where you can tweak the traction control. Some of these cars may not have adjustable traction control. I would have thought most of them would. There might be the odd one or two that doesn't. So it's a case of making sure that you've got your brake bias set right, that you've got the traction control set to the setting that you want, that you've got the ABS, if there's adjustable settings on the ABS, that they are set to where you need them to be in these conditions. And all of those things, with a little bit of luck in these conditions and a lot of concentration and skill, we'll see as to who comes out on top in our first pit stop race of the weekend. So they are already now on lap number 2. In reality, we are still under safety car here at Donington Park due to the weather conditions, and this time of year, not only with the cloud cover that we've got, and we're getting to late afternoon as well, you can see it's generally quite gloomy, and I suspect that as the lux level drops as well, that's another challenge potentially that the drivers might have whilst they're trying to concentrate through that ball of spray that will get thrown up ever more when we get to full racing pace. Even at these slow conditions, you can see just how well the Pirelli wet tyre works, casting this enormous spray out of the back of John Seale's Lamborghini and the Ferrari of John Dillon, and then Sam Randon's Porsche. The Marcos Mantis that sits behind in the hands of Warren Gilbert. Great work done by the Top Cats racing team to even get that car onto the grid. Having changed the engine, it means that poor old Charlotte Gilbert is a rather frustrated spectator for this one, but the right decision to make, because the number 3, the sole remaining Marcos Mantis, is second in Group GTB and mathematically could still claim the Group GTB championship. But the first thing it needs to do is have a good result in this one and finish ahead of that pesky Porsche that lies ahead of it as we continue round for a further lap under the safety car. So the clock is now showing there are 44 minutes to go. There is the Marcos Mantis. All looks good, isn't it, with the Marcos Mantis, which harks back to the one make series that we used to have for those cars. It was a great one make series. It's without question the oldest car that we've got in the field as well. The Marcos Mantis has been developed and run very successfully by Top Cats Racing in this championship for a good number of years now. And to what it can do in this race, we will find out in another 40 minutes or so. So all of the drivers, just again, all of these laps important for the drivers. There's still work to do. It's still making sure that you try and maintain some brake temperature in these conditions. Look for where the standing water is as well, and make sure that you either adjust your driving where the puddles are. There will be rivers that will run, particularly down through the Craner curves from one side of the circuit to the other, and it's understanding how that car might react as it hits that at full racing speed. Also understanding as to which parts of the circuit that ideally you want to be on, but it might be best to adjust your line to make sure you stay off an area that has a little bit more standing water. So all of these things are all of these processes that the drivers are still going through. They are still working hard, even though they're under safety car, purely to understand where they can try and get any small advantage, anything you do differently in these conditions that might just give you that little bit of an edge. So up towards Coppice Corner, John Seal, John Dillon, Sam Randon, Warren Gilbert, Henry Dawes, and then the car that sits there in 6th position is Stephen Chandler's Ginetta. The lights are still on the safety car. When they go off, that will be the indication that it's going to peel its way into the pit lane, but there's no suggestion that we are going to get anything other than a further lap under safety car here. And we are already now over 7 minutes into this race. Now, in terms of group leaders at this stage, just to watch out for, the grid is set based on the fastest time set in the sprint race earlier on today. So the Group GT3 leading car is the car that in the hands of John Seal, the Lamborghini. The leading Group GTC car we have is the 2nd place Ferrari. The leading Group GTB car we have is the 3rd place Porsche. But then you need to look back to 5th place, the all-white Henry Dawes Ginetta, to find the Group GTA leading car. And then if we look for the Group GTH leading machine, Group GTH was introduced a couple of seasons ago for the fully GT4 compliant cars, the GT4 homologated cars. It is the reigning champions or outgoing champions, the #1 McLaren, the 570 GT4, that's run by JMH Automotive, who are a team who've been around GT Cup since the very first race, 100 races, 100 weekends ago. That is the McLaren of Steve Ruston. That is the leading car in Group GTH that we have on the grid. So 4 laps have now already been completed. Every one of them is under safety car, as will the 5th be, but are we going to see the lights extinguished this time through on the safety car? And remember, it in reality also shortens that pit window. Whenever we get the race going, the pit window was still open 24 minutes into the race. Well, we're already now 9.5 minutes in, or 8.5 minutes into the race rather. So out of Coppice Corner. Very difficult corner, Coppice Corner, blind entry to it. It's a double apex right-hander, but you can't see the apex. You clamber up the hill. Lights are out on the safety car, so we're going to get going at the end of this race. So we've had 5 laps behind the safety car to get everybody acclimatised to the conditions. But now for John Seal, he will be the only one with a clear windscreen. Everybody else behind will be peering through that ball of spray, and we're about to get racing for real now underway. Or are we? No, lights have gone back on the safety car. The lights were out. They've now gone back on again. So safety car is continuing round. So it is going to be at least one further lap behind the safety car. So a call made from race control there, and I have a feeling that, yes, I think the problem is that there was a problem for the number 888 BMW of Richard Marsh. So I think they were ready to go green, but that BMW is now circulating. It should be on the penultimate row of the grid, but it's now circulating on its own, and I think has had an issue somewhere, called potentially into the pit lane, or had something happen to it, because it is now not in the pack of cars anymore. So just as we were about to get going, the lights come back on the safety car. We squeeze one more lap out, so that's now 10 minutes of the race have gone, which means that it's only 14 minutes now before we get the pit window open. And as yet, we've not had a racing lap. Oh, right, and there's another problem, I'm afraid. That is Alex Stevenson that has had a problem, and that car is in need of some assistance. It's off the circuit, but it's not in a safe place, and that's on the run up towards Coppice Corner. So something has gone wrong with the Century Motorsport Ginetta, and it will be dragged out of harm's way entirely. And because of where it is towards the end of the lap, it means that the safety car is going to stay out for a further lap after this, because the track will not be cleared still, so the lights will still remain on. And this is now lap number 6 that's about to be completed. We are going to get at least 7 laps of safety car, I'm afraid. that car there, car number 67, is the championship leading car. So that is Josh Jackson and Simon Orange, who have been so successful over the course of this season. The first weekend of racing at Silverstone, they managed to claim a couple of group wins. At Snetterton, a couple of group wins. Then at Silverstone, they claimed 3 group wins. Donington Park on the Grand Prix circuit, they grabbed another 2. And then at Brands Hatch last time out, they took another 3 group wins out of the 4 races. So they've got 10 group victories so far this season. Their highest overall placing was a 4th place at Brands Hatch last time out. They've had a 5th, they've had a few 6th places as well in Group GTA, which are by far the lesser powered cars. All of the individual groups are balanced by performance by the GT Cup Championship technical team. So in Group GTA, it's largely Ginettas that we see. Group GTB, you've got rear-engine Porsches and front-engine Marcos Mantis cars that you need to try and balance the performance of. You've also got running in Group GTB things like the BMW GTR, the Jeff Steele racing car that Richard Marsh has had the problem in, and he's trying to catch the pack still. So you've got all of these different configurations and types of cars to try and balance the performance of, and that's what the technical team do. GTB is for early challenge and cup cars. Group GTC is for late model challenge and cup cars, so the likes of John Dillon's Ferrari. Group GT3 is for fully GT3 homologated cars, and Group GTH is for the GT4 homologated cars. So lights are off on the safety car. Hopefully they'll stay off this time, and we are now at the end of lap number 7, finally going to get some racing underway as they turn their way through the Roberts chicane. John Seal is going to have the clear visibility, no overtaking until they reach the start-finish line, and as they charge their way over the start-finish line and up towards Redgate Corner for the first time, it is John Seal that leads the race, but John Dillon is trying to drive alongside him. The two of them had contact in race number 1. There's been contact in race number 2 at the first corner. John Dillon was sideways as he just started to disappear out of shot there, but everybody else is tiptoeing very gingerly. You can see the wide lines they're taking, nothing like the normal racing line, but it looks so John Dillon, despite the fact he was sideways and there was contact between himself and John Seal, has gone through into the early lead of the race, and it's going to be Sam Randon that's there in 2nd place. John Seal and the Lamborghini are down into 3rd position in the early stages of this one. Just look at the spray and the visibility and the standing water that the drivers are having to deal with, but it's Ferrari from Porsche from Lamborghini, 1st, 2nd and 3rd at this stage. And as they head round through McLean's Corner, off goes the 2018 champion Chris Murphy. That's down at the old hairpin. He will scrabble the Aston Martin back onto the circuit, whilst the race leaders are already turning their way round through Coppice for the first time. John Dillon it is that leads the race, and you can see the tail end of the Ferrari continually trying to break adhesion there on John Dillon. Lots of opposite lock just being put in to try and keep the car pointing in the direction that he wanted it to. Marcos Mantis is dropping down through the order with its replacement engine, but the front few cars have all absolutely romped away. What, the first 6 cars, it's 7th backwards that we've got the big queue, and there, sideways in the middle of the Roberts chicane, is John Seal. I'm afraid to say the Lamborghini's had a problem. John's had a spin. He had a difficult race number 1, the sprint race. Well, race number 2, the first of the pit stop race of the weekend, isn't going to plan either. That means that the Lamborghini will come over the start-finish line, well, just inside the top 10, down in 9th position. John Seal up towards Redgate Corner. You can see some cars opting to go side by side. John Seal has already said, you know, that the Lamborghini in the wet is not great. He does struggle a little bit with the Lamborghini in the wet, and also mid-corner speed in it is not as quick as some of the other GT3 cars that we've seen. And yeah, John is getting picked off here by some of the GT4 machinery. And there's John Dillon off as well, just going to show how difficult the conditions are. The race leader, John Dillon, spins off, tries to rejoin the circuit at the wheel of his Ferrari. He's now in the gravel trap up at McLean's Corner, and is he going to get going? He's got enough momentum to try and drag himself out, and is just about going to do it. Yeah, so that now puts Sam Randon and the Porsche into the lead of the race, and amazingly Henry Dawes in the Group GTA Ginetta is now up into 2nd position. Not unsurprising, the cars with the lesser horsepower are coping with the conditions slightly better than those with a bit more grunt. John Dillon is now having to carve his way back up through the order, having briefly had a spin and then a half spin and the trip through the gravel all in one on the run through McLean's Corner. So problems for John Seal, problems for John Dillon, and well, how fortunate for Sam Randon, because all he's doing is just driving at a pace that he's comfortable with at this stage. Oh, and there is problems also for the Marcos Mantis. The Top Cats Racing team have worked so hard to get that Marcos Mantis going, and I think that also had a problem up at Coppice Corner and possibly almost a half spin as well. That could have big implications for the Group GTB Championship for this season. Matt Topham under enormous pressure at the wheel of his Aston Martin, the number 1 McLaren of Steve Ruston sitting behind at this stage. Now, those are 2 cars that are at the sharp end of Group GTH. That's first and second in Group GTH at this stage. But for John Dillon, he is now looking to try and work that Ferrari back up through the order. I think he may well be back up into 3rd position now, because he has got himself through and ahead of the number 67 Ginetta of Simon Orange. So yeah, that is the overall championship leading Ginetta now that's behind the Ferrari, having recovered from its spin at this part of the circuit a lap ago. There goes the car that's currently second in Group GTH. That's the 3rd place Porsche in Group GTH as well. So 1st, 2nd and 3rd in Group GTH are all together at this stage. The Aston Martin, the McLaren and then the Porsche, followed by the Ginetta. So not just the top 3 in Group GTH, it's the top 4 in Group GTH. And those top 4 cars are all from different manufacturers as well. So great fights going on. In towards the braking area for the Roberts chicane. Comes 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th all together. John Seal at the back of the queue in 10th place. 11th place is Craig Wilkins at the wheel of his Ginetta. 12th place is the number 17 car, that would be Patrick Collins. And 13th is Stephen Walton at the wheel of the largely black and yellow and white Make It Happen Racing Ginetta. Through the ball of spray they appear up towards Redgate Corner. And Stephen Walton looking to try and unlock the door here on Patrick Collins. Up the inside he goes. Yep, not only place gain. Collins tries to fight back, but will surely just get pushed wide at the exit of the corner onto the curbs. That causes the rear wheels to spin up a bit, and therefore job done as far as Stephen Walton is concerned. That is a place gained, and that now moves him up from 5th in Group GTA to 4th position in Group GTA and 12th overall in the race. So 32 minutes just under of the race to go. So it's going to be, what, 6 minutes, I think, before the pit window opens. The 67 car leading the championship is in the hands of Simon Orange in this race. He's circulating in 4th position now that John Dillon's Ferrari has gone through. Hugely conscious of the advantage that they have in the championship will Simon Orange be, and Josh Jackson, who is scheduled to take over that car for part 2 of the race. Conditions, as we've seen, so easy to make a slight mistake. John Dillon got away with it, John Seal got away with it, and now Matt Topham is trying to attack the championship leading car, the Group GTH Aston Martin, up the inside of Simon Orange and gains the place as well. Behind them, Stephen Chandler is trying to keep at bay the aspirations of the McLaren in the hands of Steve Ruston for this race, for part 1. But Steve Ruston wants to try and work his way past that car. Group GTA Ginetta under attack from Group GTH McLaren. British GT racer sitting in the background as well, Ian Loggy at the wheel of the GT4 Porsche Cayman. Now Steve Ruston's going to try and go around the outside at Redgate Corner. That could cost him dear there, because he now needs to close the door on the Porsche of Ian Loggy, heading on towards the top of Craner Curves, and he couldn't do it, so no, the Porsche Cayman goes through Ian Loggy, gains a place, and is now looking to try and attack the Ginetta up the inside, heading in towards the old hairpin. Oh, problems and rotations for the number 34 car. Stephen Chandler spins the car through 360 degrees, gets the car pointing in the right direction, will continue. That's going to drop him way down through the order now. He was running in 6th position, and I think by the time he's recovered, he's going to be down in something like possibly even 12th place. We'll have to wait and see at the end of this lap. Now, John Seal is still circulating at the wheel of the Lamborghini. Remember, it started on the front row of the grid and is now down in 10th position and under attack from the Group GTH Ginetta in the hands of Craig Wilkins, a driver who was a competitor in that very first race at Snetterton. In a straight line, John Seal in the GT3 car has more pace, holds himself away from Craig Wilkins alongside James Gesson up the inside, heading in towards the braking area for the Roberts chicane. So 9th place it will be at the end of this lap for John Seal. For Ian Loggy and the Into Racing Porsche Cayman, another place gained for him as well up the inside of Simon Orange, who stays out of harm's way. That's a Group GTH car going past a Group GTA car, so doesn't affect the championship haul for Simon Orange. It still means that number 67 Ginetta might be now down in 6th place, but it's still 2nd in Group GTA, and it's where you finish in your group that's important. Now, Sam Randon is still coming under pressure from Henry Dawes in this race. That's Group GTB Porsche under attack from Group GTA Ginetta. Sam Randon still hanging on to the lead of the race, but not by much. Last time through, Henry Dawes popped in the best lap of the race we've seen so far. 1 minute 24.931, brought the gap down to just 0.8 of a second between himself and the Team Hard Porsche. Nice and neat and tidy through the Roberts chicane. 28.5 minutes of the race remaining, so another couple of minutes or so before the pit window opens. Now for Henry Dawes, he's got the whole of the window really to decide as to when he wants to dive in, because he's not got a second driver to worry about. For Sam Randon, not doing any disrespect at all to Ben Claydon, but Sam has more experience and has arguably been the quicker of the two throughout the course of the season. Ben has not been slow, but it does make you wonder in these tricky conditions, might you be better leaving the more experienced driver out there for longer, i.e. the back end of the pit stop window might be when that Porsche comes in. Bit of correction on the way into the corner for Sam Randon. John Seale's progress at the wheel of the Lamborghini continues as well. That is now up into 7th position for the Lamborghini. Gets through and ahead of Steve Ruston, claiming that championship with John Whitehouse last year. They are 3rd overall in the championship standings coming into this race as well, so they're still in the championship hunt to try and make it back-to-back championships, which nobody in the 13-year history of GT Cup has ever managed to do as yet. So John Seale now looking to try and pick off the next of the cars, which will be the 6th place car of Simon Orange. Round through Schwantz Curve up towards McLean's Corner. 2 Ginettas behind are James Guess and Craig Wilkins, who season long have been pretty much inseparable. The relative pace of both drivers and the cars that are run by separate teams. Scott Sport for Craig Wilkins, Feathers Motorsport for James Guess. They have been matched for pace at nearly every other circuit. They're fighting away for 9th and 10th currently, as John Seale is surely now going to promote himself up into 6th position, I would have thought. Yeah, again, the Lamborghini, the extra power of the Group GT3 car, through and ahead of the Group GTA Ginetta, means that John Seale will now complete this lap down in 6th position. So after the difficult start to the race, losing all of that time, 6th place as he comes over the start-finish line. Simon Orange in 7th place, Steve Ruston there in 8th position. James Guess in 9th place, and the number 80 Ginetta will be Craig Wilkins, who completes the top 10. Now they splash their way down through the Craner curves yet again. They're on lap 15 the way things currently stand. The pit window is about to open as well, so the pit window is now open. And who are we going to see dive their way into the pit lane? This is the fight for 7th and 8th position. Simon Orange under attack. A flash of the lights from Steve Ruston as the McLaren looks to try and get a better exit coming out of the corner. But the GT4 McLaren can't get through and past the Super Cup specification Ginetta. So he's going to try and unlock the door on the run towards Coppice Corner, I would have thought. So up towards Coppice Corner the pair go. He's up the inside. Is he going to make it through? They lean on each other midway through the corner. Simon Orange almost gets pushed a little bit wide just to try and avoid any contact, but Steve Ruston equally as much is well aware of the championship position. So this is the car that leads the championship overall, fighting away with the car that's 3rd in the championship overall. They're in different groups, so they don't take points away from each other, and it looks as though Steve Ruston has finally got the job done. Yet through he goes up the inside of Simon Orange. Place gained. That's now McLaren up to 7th. Ginetta down to 8th place, and for Simon Orange, he's now coming under attack from another Ginetta, and that is another Group GTH car. So again, even if James Guest gets through, it's not going to affect the championship points haul for the car, the number 67 car that leads the overall championship. He could just allow that Ginetta to go through. Oh, makes a big mistake coming out of Redgate Corner. The rear wheel's just onto the painted curbs. You can see instantly the car snapped sideways. Through goes James Guess. I think through also will go Craig Wilkins. So that's a couple of places lost overall in the race for Simon Orange. It's now down into 10th position, but everybody that's gone through is in a separate group. They're all in Group GTH, so the Ginetta is still going to lie 2nd in its particular group, so it's not affected the championship points haul for that car. Now this is for the lead of Group GTH, and it looks as though we have had the swap as well. Through has gone Ian Loggy. We've seen Ian doing a lot of racing in the British GT Championship in recent years at the wheel of a Bentley where he was sharing with Callum MacLeod, and this year he's been racing a Mercedes with the very rapid Dutchman Jelmer Berman. But at the wheel of this Porsche Cayman, he is now through and ahead of Matt Topham's car, and that now puts the number 6 Porsche up to 4th overall in the race and the lead of Group GTH. But the pit window is open and cars are starting to peel their way in, and one of the first of those to pit, he just spotted in the background of the shot, is John Dillon. So John Dillon in the Ferrari are the first of those to come into the pit lane, which means that now, in reality, Ian Loggy at the wheel of that Porsche is up into 3rd overall in the race. But of course, he is as yet still to serve a pit stop. So Sam Randon splashing his way for the 17th time up towards Coppice Corner. Porsche leading, Ginetta in the hands of Henry Dawes, still not that far away. He's not shaking him off, has he? The gap has increased. It was 0.8 of a second, wasn't it, half a dozen or so laps ago. More problems for the Marcos Mantis. Warren Gilbert finally getting it pointing round in the right direction. But I think mathematically now the Group GTB Championship is starting to disappear from them. But say the team have done a fantastic job to even get that car out and onto the grid. But it's now running down in 17th position and is a couple of laps off the lead, I'm afraid. So Sam Randon still continuing to lead by 1.3 seconds from Henry Dawes. Those two cars still as yet to stop. We have had one more car come into the pit lane, which was the James Guess Ginetta. There goes John Dillon's Ferrari, now in the hands of Phil Quaife, back out of the pit lane. So that's the first driver change now occurred. So the pro driver Phil Quaife now behind the wheel. Seen a chunk of Phil racing in GT cars over the years, and historics as well. Nowadays there's a chunk of historic racing as well, but the battle for the lead has closed up again. It was 1.3 seconds at the start of the lap. Well, in the first sector of the lap, Henry Dawes was 0.2 of a second quicker than Sam Randon, and they're about to head down the straight, which is where they'll break the beam on the second sector of it, and he's carved chunks of time out through the second sector. The fight is most definitely on for the lead of the race. Yeah, it's a full, almost half second gained in the middle sector of the lap. So Porsche still leading from Ginetta. Most cars still as yet to pit at this stage. Neither of the front two opting to dive for the pit lane this time through. So Sam Randon still working hard. It's about another 6 minutes before the pit window closes. So for Sam, that can equate to maybe another 4 laps, something like that, before he would have to then dive for the pit lane and hand the car over to Ben Claydon for part 2 of the race. So for Henry Dawes, he will just sit behind the wheel and wait for the clock to tick down before he can rejoin the race for part 2. But it's just going to show how the more powerful cars in these difficult conditions can't utilise all of that power that they've got. The slower speeds also mean that the aero doesn't work to the same degree as well, and that's why we're seeing Group GTB car leading, Group GTA car in second place, and a Group GTH car in third at the moment. But that order will shuffle now that we've got the pros behind the wheel, and in particular Phil Quaife now behind the wheel of John Dillon's Ferrari. So 20 minutes to go. We are 3/5 of the way through this race, and for Sam Randon, he has so far not put a wheel wrong and can't afford to, because he is still under pressure for the lead of the race. Just 0.5 of a second separating first from second at the beginning of the lap. Sam has pulled away a little bit more through the first sector, lost a tiny bit of time through the second sector, and is he staying out for a further lap? Yes is the answer. No, he's not. No, both of them dive for the pit lane. So Sam Randon comes in to hand over to Ben Claydon. Also, Henry Dawes comes in to sit and let the clock tick away, which means that Ian Loggy's number 6 Porsche, if it comes through, that would take up the lead of the race if he opts not to pit. This is the leading car that has pitted. So the number 61 Ferrari now in the hands of Phil Quaife. Up towards Coppice Corner goes the number 67 Championship leading car that's still in the hands of Simon Orange for this first part of the race, just about to put a further lap on Warren Gilbert's Marcos Mantis. But more and more cars now diving for the pit lane. Ian Loggy came in from third position. John Seal, I think, has just given way to Marcus Clutton as well. But there is the number 55 Lamborghini, now in the hands of Marcus Clutton. Marcus is a former British GT champion, twice you could argue. Won the GT4 class in a KTM. A couple of years prior to that, won what was the Super Sports class, it was called at the time, in the British GT Championship. He's a Group GT3 champion, of course, this year in GT Cup. He's also stitched up the Radical Challenge Championship this year as well. It's been a busy old year for Marcus Clutton, also competing in British GT with John Seal on a few rounds in that very car. So it's been a busy year, but a successful one for the pairing. And out of the race, I'm afraid to say, that's problems for Stephen Chandler right at pit lane exit. The Team Hard Ginetta has had some sort of issue. Looks as though it's steam, doesn't it, or overheating, bizarrely, in these conditions. So maybe a whole radiator or something, but that car is parked not in the safest of places, but with the pit window open, the marshals just need to pick a gap to try and make sure they can get it out of harm's way whilst there are no cars heading down the pit lane towards exit. There is the number 78 car. Now, that was the car that was leading the race. It was in the hands of Sam Randon. It's now Ben Claydon that has taken over that car. Ben, not quite as quick as Sam. So is that car going to be able to hang on to the lead of the race once we've cycled through all of the pit stops? We shall have to wait and see. Now the Top Cats Racing Marcos Mantis that Warren Gilbert shares with Jensen Lund, just about to be passed by Craig Wilkins at the wheel of the number 80 Ginetta. James Guess has also managed to squeeze his way through as well. I don't think all is still well with that Marcos Mantis. Safety car, however, is coming back out again, I'm afraid to say. So something has happened on circuit, possibly because of where that Ginetta is parked at pit lane exit, perhaps. So with the pit window being open, cars continually coming down pit lane exit, it's not overly safe for the marshals to try and shove that car out of the way, because they are crossing the exit lane of pit lane and there's nowhere else for them to put it, unfortunately. They'll have to try and push it backwards to get it out of harm's way. But to do that whilst the pit window was open is no easy task at all. So rather disconsolately trudging away goes Stephen Chandler. Not sure exactly what failed on the car, but I'm sure the Team Hard guys and girls will get that sorted for tomorrow, where we've got both a free practice session and a qualifying session coming up in the morning. Their first race tomorrow, the sprint race, is scheduled to take place just after noon, so 12:20 is when the race gets going. And then the final race of the shortened and condensed 2020 season. It's only a fortnight ago we were racing. It's, as with most things, condensed and altered several times throughout 2020. The final race of the season scheduled to take place at half past 2 in the afternoon. Yeah, so first race actually 12:05 tomorrow morning, and 2:30 is when we see the second of the races taking place. So more cars diving into the pit lane. The champions from last year in the pit lane. That is a great stint put in by Steve Ruston. John Whitehouse is just about to take over the JMH Automotive prepared McLaren, the 570 GT4, and they have timed that really to perfection. So just as the safety car was deployed, come in and see whether you can save yourself a bit of time. And this safety car being deployed at this stage, they were actually leading the race overall when they came in. We'll wait and see as to how much it shuffles the order. So safety car should be in at the end of this lap, which means that we are going to have just under 10 minutes of racing still to go. In these tricky conditions, can Phil Quaife, the pro behind the wheel of the Ferrari, muster a bit more speed out of it relative to the substantially less powerful Group GTA Ginetta of Henry Dawes? But Henry's been driving so well in this race and has worked so hard and has brought himself up into prime position in it. He's also got the advantage of having two back marker cars between himself and the Ferrari, and of course Phil Quaife can't overtake until they get to the start-finish line, so there's going to be a slight delay before he can start to crack on with the progress as such. So we're about to get racing back underway once more. Green flag flies, away we go, and as they head up towards Redgate Corner, Phil Quaife quickly deals with David Franklin's Porsche. He's then going to have to deal with Jensen Lund at the wheel of the Marcos Mantis to try and work his way through the order. Marcus Clutton at the wheel of the Lamborghini also manages to squeeze up the inside of Ben Claydon's Porsche, so that's a change for position. That's up to third place now for the Lamborghini, down to fourth for the Porsche. But as we say, it's where you finish in your group that's important, and for that pink Porsche of Ben Claydon. It's the Group GTB Championship that he'll be thinking about at this stage. So Marcus Clutton turning his way out of the old hairpin. There goes Ben Claydon, coming under attack from the number 888 Gareth Howell-driven BMW GTR at this stage, but that car is a lap adrift of the Porsche. They run in the same group, which will simply be a case of unlapping themselves. But all the rest of the cars now all bunched up together, and the squabbles will continue. Now, depending on where the car's pitted, it's had a massive impact on where they've come out, because the car of Ian Loggy, the number 6 Porsche Cayman, had been doing battle, if you recall, with the purple Aston Martin that was in the hands of Matt Topham. Well, he's almost about to try and lap that Aston Martin now. All right, problems for our race leader. Henry Dawes runs wide in the lead of the race and loses a couple of positions as Marcus Clutton also attacks for the lead and gets past Phil Quaife. So it all changed there, and which means that now we've got the Lamborghini of Marcus Clutton leading the race. Phil Quaife's Ferrari is up into second place, and having slithered its way round through the Roberts chicane, Henry Dawes drops to third, but still importantly leads Group GTA at this stage. So potentially on for the group win, but won't be grabbing championship points over the course of this weekend. Further down through the order, we did have a change for 14th and 15th place there, as Gareth Howell moved the BMW ahead of David Franklin's Porsche, so that was a change for position. But first three already through the old hairpin. Fourth place is now Alex Toth-Jones is up into fourth place, so thought he was about to get lapped by Ian Loggy's car, but I think there might have been a transponder issue with that. So the Aston Martin is in fourth place and leads Group GTH at this stage. Fifth and second in Group GTH is the number 6 Porsche, and then behind him, the next of the cars to watch out for will be car number 212, which is Chris Hart at the wheel of the Ginetta, that's carving its way through the order. 4 places gained on the first lap after the safety car had disappeared into the pit lane, and Chris Hart is absolutely flying and relishing in these rather tricky conditions. So we've got 7 minutes of the race still to go. The leaders are already over the start-finish line, but this great little fight that's going on for 5th and 6th places, side by side further down through the order. That is Gareth Howell moving the BMW through and ahead of Jensen Lunn. And that is to place a lap on that car. They run in both running Group GTB, but all is still not really well with that Marcos Mantis, which is usually right at the sharp end of the Group GTB fight and battle, but it's now some 2 laps off the lead of the race, I'm afraid to say, and it's a full lap adrift of the next of the cars in its class. Claydon at the wheel of the Porsche, continually dropping down through the order in these tricky conditions. Side by side at the top of the Craner curves. Fight for Group GTH. James Guess under attack from the red Ginetta that sits behind in the hands of Craig Wilkins, whilst the McLaren of John Whitehouse is not that far away as well. I think they're bottled up behind the Porsche. Ben Claydon stays out of harm's way. James Guest takes the opportunity to squeeze his way through. So that's, I think, 8th, 9th, 10th and 11th places there altogether. Turning their way through Schwantz Curve and up towards the braking area for McLean's Corner. Nice and gingerly on the brakes. Can Craig Wilkins squeeze his way up the inside of Ben Claydon's Porsche? He tries to do it on the way into the corner, can't quite get the traction on the way out. The rear engine Porsche are able to accelerate that little bit more coming out of the corner with all of the weight over the rear axle. So it's still Porsche ahead of Ginetta, not for want of trying as far as Craig Wilkins is concerned. He's going to have another little nibble as they head round through Coppice Corner. So down the Starkey Straight in towards the braking area for Robert Chicane. James Guest gains another place there. That's over the number 67 car of Josh Jackson. That's the championship leading car there. So James Guest started this lap in 10th position, the number 82 Ginetta. Where is he going to finish it? In 7th place. 3 places gained there for James Guest, who is revelling in these conditions. As is Chris Hart as well at the wheel of his Ginetta. So that's another place gained for the Make It Happen Racing Ginetta. That is now him up into 5th position and ahead of Ian Loggy's Porsche. So the safety car really has bunched the pack up and is causing some great little battles to go on. Craig Wilkins is still bottled up behind cars trying to get past them. He's trying to squeeze his way past David Franklin's Porsche. Eventually does it up the inside at the old hairpin. The number 78 Group GTB Porsche of Ben Claydon might have lost a raft of places since taking over that car. Won't worry him. He's still leading Group GTB, even though Craig Wilkins has gone past and John Whitehouse has gone past that car, dropping down through the order, but still leads the group, and it's the championship points that are at stake. And I think if they stay where they are, if I've got the maths right, that once they take the checkered flag, again subject to official confirmation, so all the cars have to go through technical checks afterwards, but I do think that puts them out of reach of anybody else in Group GTB Championship for this year. So for the 28th time heading in towards the braking area for the Robert chicane, and Claydon just making sure that he drives within himself. Sam Randon having done all of the hard work in the early stages, and remember was leading the race. Ben is now circulating in 10th position, but as I say, more importantly, it's the points haul that they'll be looking at, and the team will be advising that on the radio, just saying let them go by, let them go by, there's no worries, you can, as long as we win the class, win the group, that's sufficient for us to do what we need to do. And Ben, with say a relative lack of experience compared to Sam Randon, who he shares the car with, has just been learning all year, and one of the things as a driver you need to do is just listen to the team and have the confidence in what they're telling you and put that into practice, put it into practice, and that's exactly what Ben is doing. Driving the car as quickly as he needs to, and no quicker than that, and you're still potentially, if you do that, take that advice on board, in a couple of minutes time you're going to be seeing the checkered flag, and that should be sufficient to give you the Group GTB Championship for this year. So we're now into the final roughly 2.5 minutes of this race. Last time through, Marcus Clutton, who leads, popped in the fastest lap of the race, 1 minute 17.072 for Marcus Clutton. Down through the Craner curves, bearing in mind how wet it is, around about 100 miles an hour down through the Craner curves in these conditions still. Not quite the quickest down through the Craner curves. There are some of the lesser powered cars, the Ginettas, that are slightly quicker actually than the GT3 car down through that section of the circuit. The other speed trap that we get is part the way along the Starkey Straight, which is where he's heading now. We'll just have a quick look and see as to what kind of speeds they're doing. That was 133.4 miles an hour down the Starkey Straight that time through, and that is the fastest that anybody's gone through that speed trap. Not quite in the race, but that's the fastest that Lamborghini's gone through the speed trap in the race so far. 135 miles an hour from Phil Quaife behind at the wheel of the Ferrari is the fastest anybody's gone through that speed trap. So the race leader is now onto his penultimate lap of the race. So one more lap to go between Marcus Clutton and another victory in the GT Cup Championship. We saw them claim one victory here overall at the Grand Prix circuit a few weekends ago. They claimed 3 group wins that weekend, as well did John Seal and Marcus Clutton, but it looks as though they are potentially heading towards what will only be their 4th overall victory of the 2020 season in the GT Cup Championship. They took 2 overall wins at Silverstone. They took that one here at Donington Park on the Grand Prix circuit last time out, and Marcus Clutton is now a little more than what you could argue 3.5 miles away from claiming victory number 4 of the season for himself and John Seal. The Group GT3 Championship title already sealed for them. They are not in contention for the overall championship because they had an awful weekend at Snetterton and didn't appear at Brands Hatch last time out, so they were never going to overhaul the amount of points that they lost throughout the course of the season. But it is more for just stroking the car home and making sure that they claim an overall win, and now there's just one more lap to go, 30 seconds to go as Marcus Clutton weaves his way past John Whitehouse at the wheel of the McLaren, dives up the inside of the number 78 car of Ben Claydon heading in towards Redgate Corner. And for Marcus Clutton, he is now onto the final lap of the race in what is a busy weekend again here for the GT Cup Championship. Remember, it's the 100th weekend of racing for this championship, which traces its roots back to the first ever race at Snetterton in November of 2007, and 100 weekends later, 13 years it's taken to tot up those 100 race weekends. We are going to see a win for Marcus Clutton in the first pit stop race of the weekend. Last time through again, he's not easing off. Another new fastest lap of the race, 1 minute 16.919 for Marcus Clutton. And that is going to also net them an extra championship point. There's an extra championship points for the fastest lap in your particular group, an extra point for pole position in your group, and subject to the number of starters in your group, a win would either get you 25 points or 18 or 15, depending on the number of starters. I think it would be 15 points for Marcus Clutton for Phil Quaife, it looks as though it's going to be a second position, but more importantly a win in Group GTC. So there goes our race leader over the start-finish line. Checkered flag is out. It's a win. 4 wins this season for the pairing of John Seal and Marcus Clutton throughout the course of the season, whether they be sprint races or the pit stop race. We should see Phil Quaife come through and finish in second place. There goes the Porsche in the hands of Ben Claydon. I think mathematically that's enough now for that Porsche, Ben Claydon and Sam Randon, to have claimed the Group GTB Championship honours for 2020. The drivers and the teams will, I'm sure, have done the maths way better than I have, but I think that puts them out of reach now for the rest of the weekend. So Marcus Clutton working his way down in towards the braking area for the old hairpin on the slowing down lap. He'll be pleased with the amount of work that they did, and if you think that John Seal had a spin midway through that race, that is not a bad performance for that pairing. There's still some racing going on though, and this is going to be for 6th and 7th places. This is James Guess at the wheel of the Ginetta, who's second in Group GTH, under attack from Alex Toth-Jones, who is trying really hard to try and carve the Aston Martin alongside. 2 wheels on the grass as they head up there, as he was squeezed by James Guess, but fair driving from them both. James Guess brakes as late as he dare, but Alex Toth-Jones has the inside line. James Guess tries to brave it out, but Alex Toth-Jones is just going to come through and sneak the place on the run to the flag. Great final lap from Alex Toth-Jones means that that car, I think, is going to finish ahead of James Guess's car on the road, but I do think that they ultimately, well, it's still showing them as being a lap behind actually, so I do think that that was simply a case of unlapping themselves. But for Marcus Clutton and John Seal, they'll be as pleased as punch with the way things have gone. The JMH Automotive Lamborghini heads into the pit lane, so let's just confirm the results for you. It's a win for John Seal and Marcus Clutton. They also claim the win in Group GT3 with John Dillon and Phil Quaife finishing in second position and claiming the top honours in Group GTC. Third place goes the way of Henry Dawes. He's the winner of Group GTA, and fourth place is Stephen Walton and Chris Hart at the wheel of their Ginetta. Fifth place is the winner of Group GTH. That's Ian Loggy at the wheel of the Porsche Cayman GT4. And completing the top 6, it was Matt Topham and Alex Toth-Jones. Seventh place goes the way of James Guess. Eighth place is the Group GTA champions for this year, which is Josh Jackson and Simon Orange. They've got the overall championship to worry about tomorrow. Ninth place was Craig Wilkins, completing the top 10 are now the Group GTB champions, if I've got the maths right, Ben Claydon and Sam Randon. 11th place for Steve Ruston and John Whitehouse. 12th place for Chris Murphy. 13th place goes the way of the number 17 car, Patrick Collins and Russ Lindsay, with 14th place being Richard Marsh and Gareth Howell. 15th place was David Franklin. 16th place in the end, but clearly not all was well with Warren Gilbert and Jensen Lund's Marcos Mantis. And 2 cars that we lost throughout the course of that race. We lost Stephen Chandler and we lost Alex Stevenson very early on in the race. And that is it for today here at Donington Park at the GT Cup Championship. Now, whilst this is the final calendar Cup final round for 2020, the 2021 championship dates have already been announced, and again it will see us with a couple of visits to Donington Park. The national circuit this time though opens up the championship season, and we'll be back here for the penultimate round on the Grand Prix circuit in September. Snetterton and the 200 circuit also host 2 rounds. Great to be back at Silverstone, but the highlight of the season will probably be the second event of the weekend, second event of the season, Brands Hatch and the Grand Prix circuit, where the GT Cup Championship in its 14th year of competition will be supporting the GT World Challenge Europe. So that's all from us today here at Donington Park. Forecast is for better weather tomorrow, so from all of us here, we'll see you here again tomorrow at Donington Park. Until then, it's goodbye.